Welcome to the Sisterhood Effect, where friendship, empowerment, and connection come to life. I'm Danica.
And I'm Cynthia, and we're two friends on a mission to inspire women everywhere to find their way, embrace their power, and build meaningful circles of support.
This podcast is about celebrating the strength of women individually and together. We believe in the magic that happens when women come together, share their stories, and lift each other up.
Whether you're seeking clarity, confidence, or a community, you found a space where you can feel like you're not going through this journey alone.
So grab a cup of tea, settle in, and join us as we explore the beauty of female friendship, the power of vulnerability, and the journey to becoming your most authentic self.
This is the Sisterhood Effect, where women rise together.
Welcome back to the Sisterhood Effect podcast. We started this episode with a coaching session, and so we didn't have a proper introduction. And this episode went in a completely different direction than we thought that it was going to be. So here we are, when I am asking Cynthia about her women's circle that she just hosted for the first time last week. Enjoy.
I think my favorite part was when the women came up to me after and expressed to me how much of a difference I had made for them, and to feel like you have been able to make an impact in someone else's life, like a positive impact, is like the most incredible thing. I'm so happy I can impact women's lives like how I was impacted when I went to circles and retreats. Even doing this podcast, I feel like if we could have a small impact on someone else's life, make them, feel more welcome, make them feel more at ease, not alone, that is like what means the most to me.
Mhm. I love hearing that, and it's bringing me back to my first experience, like feeling like a part of a community. And I think that that's where it was all around that time that it started sparking for me. I was, welcomed into a yoga studio, and then next thing you know, I was teaching yoga for the first time. This was in 2017. And teaching my first yoga class was like the scariest thing I had ever done. But also I just felt like I had some sort of a purpose in that moment. It was like, oh my gosh, like I get to create, like, hold space for people, because like I had experienced on the other end of it what it was like to receive this love and nurture when I was in a relationship that was not the healthiest, and in that for like 4 years, and then feeling like I had no community, I had no friends. And so I stayed in the relationship longer than I should have, probably, but I left at the right time. But the reason why I had the strength to leave was because I had landed in the comfort of a community home. Like, if that is exactly what it felt like. It was like all my everything of me was welcome there, and I could be weird and loud and myself. And although, like, yeah, that didn't last, it gave me a taste of the power that could come from having community and being part of it, not from not being wanted as a sexual object, because that's the way that I was used to having. I mean, it wasn't like I had friends, but like, I mean, I was used to having like a partner, and it was just like that kind of attention. And then instead it was like this nurturing. Because like there is I hadn't experienced co-regulation in any other way than with a partner. So it is literally mind blowing when you go from having a partner give you your love like through some sort of like um, exchange that feels necessary, like, oh, I need to, like it's also entangled with sexuality as well, right? And there's like this, I don't know, there's this weird energy about it. To then like receiving co-regulation, touch, love in a completely platonic way, I was like this is what my this is what my inner child needed. Like I just needed somebody to like play with my hair and like give me a neck rub and like yeah, the power that that had for me was unmatched of anything that I had experienced before. And so having a taste of that just shifted my whole world. And like, you know, when I first did my yoga teacher training, I never intended to even be a yoga teacher. And then here I was being like, oh my God, I had no idea that this was available and what I could create with that. From that moment on, I was on a quest, on a journey to see how I could become a better leader, how I could hold space better, how I could show up better in yoga classes, show up better in every single area of my life so that I could impact people, so that people could experience what the gift that I had been given.
I love that.
Hmm.
I have like a question. It came up because with the topic of like hosting women's circles and stuff, and I think you'd be such a great person to answer this question. But like in all like fields, I think, the imposter syndrome that people talk about. Have you ever gotten imposter syndrome? Do you ever get imposter syndrome? And how do you handle that?
I love that question. Oh, yeah, of course. Are you kidding? Like, imposter syndrome was so like so present for me the entire time. And it still creeps up in different ways when I show up like in ways that are a little bigger than maybe what I feel like I'm ready for. And I think that having imposter syndrome is a healthy thing because it means that you care. First of all, it means that you care that you are showing up in this space and that you're wanting to give the best experience that you can. And I have so many tips on this. I'm like, oh, thank you so much for asking me this question. Um, because you've got to be, anytime that you are doing something, like that you are going to start doing something, most likely there will be imposter syndrome because you are straight up a beginner. And the magic in that is giving yourself permission to be a beginner and not trying to show yourself as better as you are. Because no matter where you are on your journey, you can be a student and still, Bonnie said this, you can be a student, sorry, you can be a teacher. I messed that up. You can be a teacher and always still have a fuck ton to learn. So you can learn some things and embody some things and have things to share and still have places to grow. And I think that where I became a better leader was when I started listening better and asking more questions. And so something that I really put at the forefront when I was leading this past retreat in Mexico, and you might have noticed this, was that often like I would start with asking questions to the group and see like where they're like what their thoughts are about this situation and whatnot, because I have so much to learn from everybody that's in the room. And I have some things that I can add on as well. But if you become a really, really good listener and become really good at reflecting the things that you're hearing to better understand, then you're doing great. And that imposter syndrome, I think, is really linked with the perfectionist part of wanting to show up or wanting to be seen as perfect, not wanting to be seen as dumb, wanting to be like wanting to be seen as like valuable, right? There are so many different parts that may be linked to the imposter syndrome. And there is such a thing as actually being an imposter, doing something where you're like, clearly you don't have the skills to do that. And then you would want to check yourself with that. But most oftentimes, I see people who have like a shit ton of training in something and whatnot, and then they're like still feeling that imposter syndrome. It's literally just because you care so much about offering something good. And if you care so much, then you will put effort into it and make it the most amazing with your attention and with your presence. And if you have your attention and your presence there, then like amazing. People resonate with that. People resonate with energy. People resonate with where your frequency is, where you show up. And if you show up in a frequency that is wanting to create the best experience for the people, not for yourself, for the people that you show up for, then like you will.
I think that's so true about the fact that you can be a teacher and you still have so much to learn. Like, you'll always be a student, like, and a teacher. You could be a teacher and you'll still be a student, because there's just so much to learn. And like you said, listening, I think, yeah, I think that's so important. And when you said about your energy and your authenticity, like in the retreat, I could feel that, like I could feel your heart and your effort that you put into it to make it a good experience for us. Like, and I think everyone felt that, felt that like love from you and that authenticity from you. And that's why like we loved it so much. Like, and that's why it was so good because like you really weren't doing this for you, like you weren't like, oh, I'm gonna do this so that I can whatever, whatever. It's like, I want to do this because I want to create this experience for these women. And I think that makes such a difference.
Thank you so much for reflecting that. And also like I had imposter syndrome before starting the retreat, right? Like it was like, can I create an experience that is gonna, meet these girls at a really deep level? And I'm so glad that I allowed my controller to get out of the way and just showed up to meet y'all there. And my big intention at the start, and I shared this with all of you, was to be receptive. And that was for me, the way that I was looking at that was like, I just want to like be a better listener. I want to be receptive to what these ladies
Mhm.
want and desire. And so
Mhm.
like I'm so glad that that happened and the way that it did, and that I allowed myself to show up in the way that I did. And I'm glad
Yeah.
that also it was received the way that it was.
Yeah, I mean, I think even, and you're like, there's good and bad. So there's good and bad to everything. So I think that even when you get super, super experienced at something, I think people lose a little bit of like that authenticity and that I mean, I don't think it comes intentionally, but like someone who's like super duper experienced, let's say in like hosting women's retreats or whatever, like they've done it so many times, they're so good. And it's like the magic is if you can continue to keep that authenticity there. Like that is, I think, the hardest part because when you do something for so long, it's maybe not that you've like, it's just different, like, okay, in that way, you might be more skilled because you have more experience. But I think there's something that's lost, like when that happens.
Well, I think what you're talking to is like how much effort are you gonna put in when you feel like you're the shit. So like the ego
Right.
in
Yes.
front where you're like, I no longer need to put as much energy and effort into this. And I think that that's where it might go wrong. I've also seen amazing, experienced people who still give their whole heart into everything that they do. And so, like, I think it comes down to the individual for that. But, like, at the end of the day, do you want to be someone who creates experiences that really touch people? And I think that that's where you and I are at. And if you're listening to this podcast and you're curious and wanting to, be a leader or step into your leadership, this is a beautiful place to be in. Getting curious about if this is something that you'd like to do, because the number one thing that I would give as a piece of advice here is to figure out like why you
Mm,
want to be doing what you want to do, why you want to show up in that way.
I
And if
think that's the first step.
right, like you need to know why you're doing what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Mhm. You have to get really clear on it too,
Yeah,
because the road is not going to be easy. And so when you have your why, that's what keeps you going when times get tough.
yeah. There's a book called Start with Why. So if you want some resources, that's a good one. Um, Yeah, if you are fueled by a reason why and you just place your attention on the people, then like you will build something really beautiful. And you don't need all the skills in the world if you want to start hosting your own women's circles. You don't need all the skills in the world, but it would be great to have some sort of facilitation skill with whether it's like a space holders kind of course, or maybe you get facilitated in breath work or in yoga nidra or meditation or something of the sorts.
Mhm.
And we can talk more about these tools because I love talking about that. After that, it's just like at the end of the day, for us, like the women's circle type of vibe, at least for me, it's just about bringing women together and focusing on having them connect more and connect with themselves and connect with each other. So we could even go through a little list of like, hey, if you want to host your first women's circle, here are the things to kind of look at. Should we
Yeah,
should we go through that?
yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
cool. All right. So first off, really know your reason why. Why gets to be super duper clear. And then if you want to start with just a gathering, like figure out, do you want to be doing just an event, like a one-off event, or do you want to start like your women's circle in your community and build a community through that? Right. So like make the decision of what it is that you want to do. Cause maybe you just want to do a one-off event. Maybe you like I'm hosting this Galentine's event for Valentine's Day, right? And
Yeah.
it's a one-off thing where I hired a bunch of like massage therapists and things like that, and they're all coming together and like people are just gonna go there to receive, but it's also an opportunity to connect with each other, women of the community. So maybe
Oh,
you
I love
want to
that.
start small and just do something so chill, right? I'm not leading any of that. I'm just putting it together. So that's the vibe. But maybe you want to start your own women's circle. And if you do, you pick a date, choose a theme. Maybe it's something that you are currently kind of like feeling the energies of, but make sure that it's something that you know enough about to have like your own story linked with it. Like you've experienced something with that has given you some sort of that has like offered you some sort of embodiment around this topic. Something that like is tangible that yeah, that you know personally and that will help you in the circle, right? So you figure out what you've learned about that theme. You make a focus on connection exercises. So the pressure doesn't have to be all on you bringing something magic together and just kind of leading the entire time, right? Remember, it's really about listening and how you can allow these people to connect. So I love to play with the dynamics of the group, having a good mix of like circle shares where people are like it's in a bigger group and we're sharing together, and also a mix of like one-to-one shares. So people get to connect with someone on a one-to-one. You want to potentially have a couple of relevant journal prompts. Maybe you have an activity that you want to do and you have some supplies. You did some sort of activity in your last women's circle, right?
I
What?
did. I did watercoloring
Oh, I love
and
that.
they loved it so much. This is like really like kind of the first women's circle that I hosted. And I mean, it sold out. It like, I just can't even believe it did, but it did. And, I was very nervous because I was like, well, I hope they all have a good time. I hope that, I bring value to them and, enjoy it. And I was like having all these things that I wanted to say. And I was like, well, do I like start out saying everything and I have this whole like spiel of like and I ended up like not doing that just because I went with like what felt more authentic. And I mean, we did introductions and then we did like a partner exercise. So we did eye gazing, very simple exercise, but I think it was able to help the women bring down
Their nervous system because they were able to co-regulate in that moment, right? It's that co-regulation piece.
Mhm. So we did that. And then I am a yoga teacher. So I led like a little bit of gentle movement yoga. To kind of like, stretch out the body, regulate the nerves. And then we all kind of laid down, and then I did a guided meditation. And that was where I think I I wanted like them to feel like my voice and also feel the words that I was saying and to really hear them. And I think it really worked because like they loved it. And then after that we did the heart shares and everyone was so their hearts were open. Like and that was like my whole goal of like the exercises that I did in that sequence to like let their guard down, to let the mask down that we put so strongly up to protect ourselves. And it really worked because then everyone was so vulnerable. And I did the thing that you did where you said, where you make a promise basically that everything that is said in circle stays in circle, And I think that that was so important. And I felt like it was important when you did it because I was like, well, that's great because now I feel like this is safer for me. And then I did that too. So I think that other people felt that too.
I love that you're sharing this because those were exactly the things I was thinking in my mind. I was like, you know, what you did is you created the safety at the start of the circle, and that's a huge pillar in if you want to be leading a space, it's really like you are in charge of. Like, of course, you cannot create safety for each person that is there, but you can put it in their hands to cultivate their own safety and make it known that y'all are creating these principles and agreements together. That's what I call them, principles and agreements. And it means that like everything is an invitation, everything is a choice. It's that everything that is said here stays here. It's just making sure that you have those points so that everybody's clear on it and usually you start the circle with that, right? Those are the things you do before you do anything else. That way, people are like, okay, we're on the same page. And I love to get people to actually like raise their hand and
Yeah.
show the other people, like, hey, I'm down for this. And I'll also ask, like, is there anything else you want to add to this? Because it's not just me creating this, we're co-creating this together. So to continue on, you can also create an altar at the center. That's
Mhm.
always really nice. So you can place a blanket, maybe you have some candles. You want to create a vibe. You want to create an environment that feels cozy. I love to bring my galaxy light. I love to bring my little tea lights. And, when I hosted one with Chelsea, last year, like she brought like a whole altar. Like it was next level. I'm not the best at creating altars, but that's why sometimes you collaborate with someone who's better at doing other things than you, right? And then I would also get curious, like, what would you like to receive in a circle? Before you go and lead your circle, just think about what you'd like to receive if you were to participate in it. And that might get you curious about what you bring in. Like for myself, I know that if I'm going to a circle, like I really want to connect with new people one to one. Like that's a huge thing for me. And then if you're like all set and ready to go, then you maybe want to start one for free. Maybe you go by donation. So the pricing is really up to you and depending on like how much experience you have, how comfortable you feel holding that price as well.
And I would say that even if people just want to like just start, like just get like three friends together, two friends together, and like, hey, do you guys want to come to my house? I'll have snacks. Like, you want to just like talk, like, yeah. And then maybe just the only thing you need is have a theme.
From the Denver Women's Circle are doing one with like sensuality and
Yeah.
love for Valentine's Day. I'm like, perfect. Like tie it into the themes of like what's happening in life in those moments, right? So like you get to be creative with all of those things. Yeah. So I think this should be a good time to wrap it up. And let's show our bomb ass shirts to everybody because I got super spontaneous and we decided we're making crew necks and we just bought ourselves because they look amazing. So it says women rise together. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can see it, but if not, you'll have to go and check it out. And then on the back, we got boom. Oh wait, hold up. Boom. See that?
Yes.
So it's a butterfly and it says
Oh,
the
cute.
sisterhood for our so
I love it. So
maybe
cozy.
in the future we'll have merch for y'all. If you wanna rock these freaking we were thinking we got like the pink and then we also got the green, but the pink, like, come on.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add on there, Cynthia?
Um,
All right. Mwah! If you like this episode, rate, like, comment, share, all of those
Subscribe.
subscribe, all of those things, and we'll see you next time.